My name is Althea Danvers. I'm 68 years old, born and raised in the Mississippi Delta, and for most of my life, I cleaned up after other people. I spent over 40 years as a janitor, hotels, offices, banks, always quiet, always on time. I raised a son on minimum wage, wore secondhand shoes so he could wear new ones, skipped meals so he never had to. I thought that would mean something. I thought love and sacrifice would come back to you somehow. But I was wrong. A year ago, my son betrayed me in a way I never saw coming. He didn't just take my money. He took my home, my dignity, and the last bit of trust I had left. And the worst part? He didn't even flinch. People like to say family is everything. But what happens when the people you love the most are the ones who tear you down? This is my story. It's not pretty, it's not dramatic, but it's real. I lost everything. And then I found something I didn't know I had: strength. I was living in a small 2-bedroom house on the south edge of Greenwood, Mississippi. Nothing fancy. Brick walls, faded green shutters, a porch swing that creaked when the wind hit just right. I kept it clean. Always did. A woman's pride, I guess. My knees had started to go bad a few years back. Long hours on tile floors will do that to you. I'd retired from the cleaning company at 65. Social Security barely stretched far enough, but I managed. I always managed. That's when my son Malik stepped in, or so I thought. He came by with his wife, Simone, and their baby girl, Jada, one Sunday afternoon, brought barbecue, hugged me like old times. He said, "Mama, you shouldn't be doing all this by yourself. Let me help you out. Let me handle the bills so you can breathe easy." At first I said no. I wasn't raised to hand over control. But he insisted, gently, respectfully, said he'd set up auto-pay for my mortgage and utilities just until I got back on my feet. He made it sound like a gift, like love. So I gave him access to my account, just the basics: mortgage, water, electric, nothing else. We even sat at my kitchen table while he showed me how it'd work. He smiled at me that day. I remember thinking, I did something right. He turned out good. I didn't know it then, but that moment, sitting across from him, trusting him, would be the last time I'd feel safe in my own home. It started small. I was at the grocery store just picking up a few things: bread, peanut butter, some milk. When I got to the register, my card declined. I laughed, soft and awkward, and told the cashier, "Try it again, baby." She did. Same thing. Declined. I went home empty-handed. I figured maybe there was a mix-up with the bank. Something technical, no big deal. I'd check it online later. But when I logged into my account that night, my stomach dropped. The balance didn't make sense. I was missing almost $2,000. I stared at the screen, blinking like that would fix it. There were withdrawals I didn't recognize, transfers labeled with strange company names, amounts too round, too clean, $500 here, $300 there, every few days, all going to the same place. My mortgage wasn't paid that month. The lights were still on, but barely. I scrolled, heart racing, hands shaking. I clicked on the transfer details. Recipient, MD Solutions, LLC. I didn't know what that was. Never heard of it. But I knew the initials, Malik Danvers. I froze. I thought, no, he wouldn't. He wouldn't do that to me. Would he? I tried to calm myself down. Maybe it was a mistake. Maybe he had a plan. Maybe he meant to talk to me about it. Maybe it was temporary. But something inside me already knew. There was a shift, a crack in something that had always felt solid. I called him the next morning. No answer. I waited a few hours. Texted, "Hey baby, can we talk? Something's off with the bank." Nothing. That silence felt louder than any lie he could have told. 3 days passed. No call, no text, nothing. I wasn't sleeping. My chest felt tight, like my heart was holding its breath. I checked my bank account every morning. More money gone. Another $400, then $200. Bit by bit, like someone draining me with a needle. So I got in my old Buick and drove across town to Malik's house. It used to be my house, years ago, when he was still in high school. I'd sold it to him cheap after I moved closer to the library. It looked different now. Paint peeling, yard unkept. A mess. I knocked. Simone answered. She had that tired, irritated look she always wore around me, like my presence cost her something. "Oh," she said. "Hey." I asked to see Malik. She hesitated. "He's busy. Work stuff." I told her what I'd found, what was happening with my account, the missing money, the transfers. I kept my voice low, calm. She leaned on the doorframe, one hand on her hip. "I don't know anything about that. You probably messed something up with your online banking, Miss Althea." Miss Althea? Not Mom, not even Ma. That cut deeper than I expected. "I'm not confused," I said. "I'm telling you something isn't right." She didn't respond, just stared at me like I was the problem. Then Malik showed up behind her, wearing joggers and a gold chain, eyes half open like I'd just interrupted his nap. I felt a flicker of relief. He'll explain. He'll fix this. Instead, he said, "Mama, don't start. You're overreacting." I blinked. "You took my money, Malik." He shrugged. "I was just trying to help manage things. But if you don't trust me, that's fine. We'll stop." That's all he said. We'll stop. No apology, no concern, no shame. And then he added, "You're stressing out too much. Maybe it's time you talk to someone about your memory." I stood there on the porch, lightheaded, my own son, looking me in the eye, gaslighting me like I was senile. He was done with me. I turned around, walked back to my car, and sat there for a long time, hands on the wheel, before I could even bring myself to start the engine. I wasn't confused. I wasn't crazy. I was alone. After Malik shut that door, I drove around town for almost an hour. No destination, just streets I'd driven for years. Past the church where I taught Sunday school, past the old grocery store that used to be a corner market, past people I used to know, who'd wave without thinking. I ended up at Loretta's house. We'd been best friends since we were 22, worked side by side as maids at the old Mason Grand Hotel. We used to sit on the back steps after shift, feet sore, talking about life, men, and dreams we never chased. She was the one who brought me soup when I had surgery, who helped braid my hair when arthritis started messing with my hands. If anyone would believe me, it'd be Loretta. She opened the door with a smile. Same soft eyes, same silver curls tucked under a scarf. "Well, look who finally showed up. Come on in, girl." We sat on her floral couch, tea steeping in the kitchen, gospel humming on a low radio. I told her everything. The bank withdrawals, the way Simone talked to me, what Malik said, the way he looked at me like I was some burden. I didn't cry. I couldn't. The tears had dried up 2 nights ago. Loretta listened, or seemed to. Then she said, "Now, Althea, maybe don't jump to conclusions. Malik's always been a little careless, but that boy loves you." I shook my head. "This wasn't carelessness, Loretta. He knew what he was doing." She reached out, touched my hand. "You sure it wasn't just a mix-up? Online stuff's tricky nowadays." That hit me harder than I expected. I pulled my hand back. "I know how to read a damn bank statement," I said quietly. She raised her hands like I'd snap. "All right now, no need to get upset." But I was upset. Not just at Malik, at her, at how fast people, even the ones closest to you, turn into diplomats when the truth gets uncomfortable. It wasn't that she didn't believe me. It was that she didn't want to. Because believing me meant accepting that a good son, a grown man she'd watched grow up, could do something shameful. And maybe it also meant facing how quickly people can write off older women like me, call us confused, over-emotional, dramatic. I left before the tea finished brewing. She didn't walk me to the door. 2 weeks after I walked out of Loretta's house, I came home to a piece of paper taped to my front door. Final notice, mortgage past due, foreclosure proceedings pending. I stood there, keys in my hand, staring at those words like they were written in another language. But I understood perfectly. Malik hadn't just taken my savings. He'd stopped paying the mortgage months ago, long enough for the bank to start the process of taking my home, the place I paid off little by little, the place I kept spotless even when I was too tired to stand, the only thing I truly owned in this world. Gone, or soon to be. I called the bank. They were polite but firm. "We've sent notices by mail, Ms. Danvers. Several. Last one was certified." I never saw them. Malik had changed my mailing address to his. "To make things easier," he said back when I handed him control. He had rerouted my life behind my back. I sat on my couch, hands in my lap, the silence pressing against the walls. I didn't know who I was anymore. In this world, when you're an older black woman with no money and no husband, people stop asking questions. They assume, they whisper, they move on. I saw it in the eyes of the woman at the bank who couldn't help me. I saw it in the neighbor who used to chat with me at the fence, but now pretended not to see me at all. The next day at church, I sat in the back pew. No one asked why I'd missed the last 2 Sundays. No one noticed the tiredness in my face, the weight in my posture. Or if they did, they looked away. Malik didn't call. Simone didn't text. Jada didn't ask for me. It's a strange thing, realizing you've been erased from your own life. Slowly, gently, like chalk in the rain. I had 2 weeks before the bank said I had to leave. No options, no savings, no family to call. I sat on the edge of my bed one morning, watching sunlight crawl across the floor like it didn't care what was happening. And for a moment I didn't either. But something in me, maybe the part that raised a child alone on a cleaner's salary, maybe the part that survived years of being overlooked, refused to go quietly. I got up, I got dressed, and I walked to the Greenwood Public Library. It's funny, people think libraries are quiet places, but if you really listen, they're full of life. Babies babbling during story hour, teenagers whispering over homework, old men arguing softly about newspapers. I'd volunteered there years ago, during summers, just shelving books and helping with the children's reading circle. I walked up to the front desk and found Mrs. Pennington, white woman about my age, always wore pearls and had a memory like a steel trap. She looked surprised to see me. "Althea," she said, "you all right?" "No," I said, "but I'm here." I told her I was looking for work, anything, cleaning, organizing, helping with kids. I wasn't proud. She tilted her head like she was measuring me for something other than pity. "Well, our part-time custodian just quit," she said slowly. "It's only 20 hours a week, pays like peanuts, but you'd be doing what you're already good at." I nodded. "I'll take it." And just like that, I was working again. Not in an office tower, not in someone else's home, but in a place full of stories. Every morning, I swept the floors before opening, wiped fingerprints off tabletops, refilled hand soap. Quiet work, honest work. But the best part? I'd come in early and sit in the children's section before the lights came on. Just me and the books. Sometimes I'd pick one up and read out loud to no one, just to hear my voice saying something kind again. It wasn't money. It wasn't justice, but it was mine. And for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was still here, still whole. It was a Saturday afternoon. Story time had just ended. I'd spent the morning reading corduroy to a group of little ones, some squirming, some wide-eyed. The library was nearly empty now. Just the sound of the HVAC humming and a few quiet voices near the computer lab. I was wiping down the tables when I looked up and saw Tasha, my granddaughter, Jada's older sister, Malik's firstborn, 17 now. Tall, quiet, always had eyes like mine, dark, steady, and harder than they should have been. She didn't speak right away. Just stood in the doorway of the children's room, backpack slung over one shoulder, hair in a tight bun. I stared at her. A part of me wanted to run to her. Another part didn't move at all. She cleared her throat. Miss Pennington said I could help with shelving, for volunteer credit. I blinked. You're volunteering here? She nodded. It was this or the community center. I chose here. I couldn't tell if it was fate, guilt, or just a high school requirement, but I didn't question it. We worked together in silence for the first 20 minutes. She alphabetized like she meant it, efficient, focused. At one point, she turned to me and asked, "You still live in that house on McKinley?" I paused. Not anymore. She didn't say anything, just kept shelving. Later, while emptying the wastebasket near the reference desk, she mumbled, "I didn't know about what they did. I found out late." I looked at her, really looked, and I saw it. Shame, confusion, that same helplessness I used to feel when adults made choices I couldn't stop. I didn't say, "It's okay," because it wasn't. But I said, "I know," and she stayed until closing. The next Saturday, she came back. She didn't ask about her father. I didn't bring him up. We talked about books, about school, about what colleges she was thinking of. She started walking me to my bus stop. Every goodbye was awkward, a half hug, a wave, sometimes nothing. But I felt it, the shift, the quiet mending. It wasn't redemption, it wasn't a grand apology, but it was real. And for the first time in months, I let myself believe in something again. The library was quiet that morning. Rain tapped on the windows and the air smelled like damp carpet and old books. I was wiping down the glass doors when I saw Mr. Harlan walking in, briefcase in hand, an umbrella tucked under his arm. I hadn't seen him in years. He used to be a lawyer in town, now mostly retired. Did pro bono work for seniors when he could. We went to the same church for decades, back when people still looked me in the eye. He smiled soft and warm. "Althea Danvers, heard you were back on your feet." I nodded. "Trying." He lowered his voice. "You still got that situation with your boy?" I didn't flinch. "I do." He tapped his briefcase. "You want to talk options?" I hesitated. My pride and pain wrestled inside me, but I said yes. We sat in a corner of the library over lukewarm coffee in paper cups. I told him everything, not with drama, not with tears, just the truth. The bank account, the forged address, the missing mortgage payments, the silence. He took notes, listened like it mattered. Then he said, "Althea, this isn't just betrayal. It's financial abuse, and it's a crime." I stared at him. "Even if it's my own son." He didn't blink, "Especially because it's your own son." I nodded slowly. He filed the paperwork within the week. We didn't go after jail time. I didn't want to destroy him. But restitution, a court order, a public acknowledgement of what was done to me. Yes, and I got it. Malik didn't even show up to the first hearing, sent a lawyer in a too-tight suit who barely looked at me. The judge asked if I wanted to speak. I stood, hands folded, and I said, "I trusted someone I loved, and he took from me without blinking. This isn't about revenge. This is about not disappearing quietly." The room was still, and for the first time in almost a year, I felt seen. A month later, a restitution payment arrived in the mail. Not enough to erase the damage, but enough to get my own small apartment near the library, a place with sun in the windows and quiet floors I could call mine. No apology came from Malik, No knock on my door, no sudden remorse. But I had my name back, and that was worth everything. The new apartment was small. 1 bedroom, a galley kitchen, no porch swing. But it had a window that caught the morning sun just right, warm and gold, like God hadn't forgotten me after all. I painted the walls myself. Pale blue in the kitchen, soft cream in the bedroom. Put lace curtains in the living room window, just like the ones my mama had when I was little. I bought a second-hand armchair that still smelled like someone else's story, but it was soft, and it cradled my back. It was mine. Tasha kept coming by. She'd bring me little things, muffins from school, new books from the teen section, pictures Jada had drawn. Once she handed me an envelope. He said not to tell you it was from him. Inside was a check, not from Malik's account, but his business. Quiet money? No note. I didn't cash it. I didn't need it. One Sunday afternoon, I walked into church again. First time in months. The sanctuary was still the same. Worn pews, dusty hymnals, ceiling fans spinning slow. Some heads turned, some didn't. I sat in the back like I always did. But when the choir started, something in me stood up. Not my body, my spirit. I was still here. They hadn't erased me. They hadn't ended me. They'd just forced me to remember who I was without all the noise. A woman who raised a child with nothing. A woman who cleaned floors and built dignity with her hands. A woman who lost everything and stood back up alone. The next week, I started a Saturday morning reading circle at the library. 10 kids showed up the first day, 20 by the third week. I read stories about lions and lonely islands, stubborn girls and quiet heroes. I told them that no matter how small the world makes you feel, your voice still matters. And I believed it, because mine did. I never raised my voice. I never took anything back by force. I never exposed Malik in front of the church or posted online. That's not the kind of woman I am. But sometimes, silence is the sharpest blade. People started talking, as they always do in a town like ours. Not because I told them what happened, but because time does that. Truth has a way of rising, even when buried deep. I didn't need to shame him. He did that himself. I'd see Simone at the grocery store. She wouldn't make eye contact. Sometimes she'd turn around and walk down another aisle. Once I heard her whisper to someone, "She's different now, cold." She was wrong. I wasn't cold. I was clear. Clear on who I was. Clear on what I'd survived. Clear on what I would never allow again. Malik still runs that little business of his. It's not thriving, not failing, just floating. I heard he tried to buy a new house, but couldn't secure the loan. Too much debt in his name. Too many questions on his record. Tasha told me he still doesn't talk about it. And that's fine. I don't need an apology. I got my justice when I opened my own front door again. When I looked in the mirror and saw a woman who came through fire and kept walking. When I stood in the children's section of that library and saw little brown faces look up at me like I mattered. I was a cleaner. Now I'm something else. I'm a voice. I'm a presence. I'm a woman who wasn't erased.